A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 138th episode of Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. We hope you and your loved ones have had a fantastic Dasera and everybody at home are safe and well. About 18 months ago, in April 2020, when the pandemic had just set in and schools had closed down, we at Notebook felt it was our duty to set up a platform for educators to connect meaningfully on, discussing problems they were facing with the rising need of digital education and online learning, and arrive at common solutions. Today, 137 episodes later, this platform has grown much bigger than we had anticipated, thanks to your love and support. We have discussed extremely curricular topics here: digital learning and NEP, extracurricular topics like sports and school management, and even mental health. Today, we look at something that is very personal. Over these last 18 months, all of you educators have had a tough time balancing your teaching responsibilities and your family commitments. With extended hours, new methods, and sometimes reduced family incomes, burnout has become a very big reality. So today we look at how, as educators, you maintain a work-life balance. To speak about this topic, our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Barrett retired from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun as the deputy headmaster after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. He served the Doon School as housemaster, head of department, dean of activities, dean of student welfare, deputy headmaster, second master, and acting headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Barrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and we at Notebook are privileged to have him as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Shubayu. I hope I'm audible.
Perfectly, sir.
Good evening to you and Achin, Abhishek, and all my colleagues at Notebook in Calcutta. Also to our esteemed panelists and the guests who have tuned in after the Shara break. When I speak for myself, and I'm sure my fellow colleagues and fellow teachers, when I say that when we chose the teaching profession, it could be because it seemed to be a low-stress job where we could stay young in mind and body, play the games with children, and get involved with the lives of young people, and get away from the corporate rat race that many of us teachers want to get away from. The rat race, which includes careers and promotions and cutthroat competition and rivalries. But after 40 years as a teacher, I found that I was completely wrong, because I was involved in a very stressful job, handling many responsibilities, juggling many responsibilities, wearing many caps, making budgets, answering to the board, my headmaster, needing to be in 5 places all at the same time, and while this was going on, I also had a full teaching load. I had corrections to do, I had reports to write, I had parents to meet, letters to write, planning the next day's lessons. Somewhere in the 70s and 80s, schools, especially public schools, got corporatized. In our school, we even had a head of human resource office who made out these appraisal forms, and we had to be appraised very much like corporate workers. And on many occasions, I would tell my HHR friend that we don't make soap, and we're not in the business of making ball bearings and soap, and so forth. And therefore, we as teachers needed a different type of appraisal, which you cannot put it on paper. You do not see how teachers work. We don't produce things like corporates. I have seen many of my colleagues get old before they retire. Some of them have died while in service. They get hypertension, they suffer nervous breakdowns, type 2 diabetes because of stress. Marriage breakups in boarding schools are common. And all this is the result of too much paper pushing, meeting deadlines, multiple tasking. Some drank and smoked heavily. Many were obese. Some of them had to meet the school therapist because they were seriously depressed. Some succumbed, to their poor health. Many of them hid their ailments. And one of my colleagues even committed suicide. And a lot of them left the teaching profession, which is what they came to do in the first place, because they found that they could get more downtime in other jobs. Now, I know one head teacher of mine who, when he asked a teacher, what came first, his family or school? The teacher replied, obviously the family. And let me tell you, that poor teacher, had a very rough time because the headmaster wanted everyone to put school before family. And so, nepotism, wanting to be, sycophantism, all that came to the fore because schools were corporatized. One school had even had a stress evaluation by a professional agency, and they discovered that most of their teachers were overworked and highly stressed. So no matter how dedicated we are to our job, no matter how hard we work, what really we need is time off within our working space. It is not good enough to say you get 4 months holidays in a year. Therefore, you go to work 24/7 for the other 8 months. The body doesn't work like that. I think every day one needs to be mindful. One needs to relax every day. You can't work like an engine for 8 months and relax for 4 months. I've seen schools that appoint teachers and give them an appointment letter. But once that letter gets out, the job profile tends to get added on to new and diverse responsibilities slowly and insidiously add to that load. When I joined school, there was no Lambda, there was no MUN, there was no Trinity speech, there was no IAYP, there was no exchanges. We didn't have a certain amount of teacher in-service workshop hours that we had to put in. The computerization of our work started. New sports like golf and shooting and equestrian, everything was added on to the syllabus. We turned from an Indian board to an IB board, which was a huge load addition. Yes, staff strength did grow, but often these add-ons, made teachers run away from the job. The more lethargic learned to avoid the work. And so the load fell on a few hardworking teachers and their backs were broken. The teacher appraisals, which started in my days, doesn't make life easier because now there's this rush to prove yourself, to be looked at positively for promotions and higher appointment. That adds a lot of stress. Now, everyone knows that life in a residential school is a 24/7, 8-month round the year job. And people often envy us because of our residences and our salaries. But it is not a roller coaster ride. Day schools are no better because they might end at 2 o'clock, but then the teachers are usually they do extra work, they take tuitions to make two ends meet. And that again is stressful. My routine as a housemaster, if anyone knew what time I got up and what time I slept and how little time I had with my own family, even though my children were in the school I taught them, I hardly got to meet them. Day started at 5:30 and ended sometimes well past midnight. Because when you have 50 to 100 children under you, there is not a single day when something doesn't go wrong, either a medical emergency or some calamity in the house or somebody needs my help. And so my bell was rung at any time of the day. Now the need for balance in life is important. The human body doesn't work. If you stress it too hard, you need to switch off. Now, in day schools, of course, you have the town, you have cinemas, shopping, you have visiting friends, eating out. Often residential schools are tucked away into the hills where there is no social life. And whatever social life or relaxation one has is on the campus. And the school calendar, the inter-house events, the inter-house music, the cinema, staff sport, staff get-togethers is the only entertainment that the teachers in a boarding school have. I remember I got one day off in a year because my children had come in from Delhi where they were studying in college. And we rushed up to Mussoorie to have a breakfast. Midway through the breakfast, I got a call saying that one of my boys had seriously injured himself in a cricket match. And so we had to truncate this breakfast, rush down the hill. And, I was busy with the parents who had come down from Delhi. I was busy in the hospital. And that's just one incident. There were so many incidents I can relate where I couldn't even spend a weekend with my family. We need to remember that in the end, while promotions and increments are important, our families and children do need our time. We cannot put them on hold for some later stage down the line, because what my 7-year-old kid wants of me, he may not want at 17. I do a lot of lecturing for teachers in schools in Dehradun, and I also always ask them what they do to bust their stress. What is their avocation? What do they do to chill out when they're not in the class? I often ask them where they spend their money and time. Because if you can tell me where you spend your money and time, I can tell you where your heart lies. And I often say, follow your heart. Follow the things that you want to do. In schools that I have visited abroad, I find that this life, that this balance between work and play is much better handled. There are teachers who write books. There are teachers who play sport. There are teachers who are artists, concert pianists. Many of them dog lovers, walk and train their dogs. They belong to some club or the other, bird watching club. They talk about, they attend, religious gatherings. They're kayakists and canoeists and mountaineers. I even knew a gentleman called Richard Naruka, who happened to come 5th in the 1992 Olympic Games. He was a teacher at Marlborough College, which I visited. He was a Russian language teacher. And he was in that school only because his coach, Bruce Tuller, famous Olympic athlete, was also the biology teacher. So these two, you can imagine what sort of athletic team the school had. And this teacher of Russian was also an Olympic runner. He's won many European marathons. And so this is one example. There are so many school teachers abroad who are top-class sportsmen, top-class concert pianists, dog lovers, horse trainers. And I think one leads a more fulfilled life, more fulfilled and more positive academic life if there is more fun in doing things outside the class. And I think there's no dichotomy between good work as a teacher and healthy avocation, healthy hobbies. Children seem to be drawn more to teachers who have another dimension to their lives. They connect with these teachers. They find them more interesting. Often I've seen children play with the teachers' pets. They train their falcons abroad. They practice archery. Teaching is a job that might start at 21, goes on for 40 odd years. And it's got to be paced out. It's got to be paced out. It's not a sprint. Otherwise, one loses effectiveness. One gets tired too soon. One ages too soon. Now, heads of schools, again, pressurized by the boards and societies that run them, seem to drive teachers forward till they can't stand anymore. They're at a standstill because they just want to push and push and push and overload teachers, constantly using the carrot and stick method. So teachers have a sword of Damocles hanging over them, and this only reduces effectiveness. It does not increase effectiveness. I once worked in a school. I was called to do a school audit for a school which where they found that teachers were not staying. There was a huge amount of attrition. And I embedded myself in the school for 4 days and I studied the school. And at the end of it, my report said that there was nothing in this school that gave the teachers some sort of relaxation. It was work, preparation time at night, and work the next morning. There was nothing where the teachers could, put their hair down, let their hair down. And I think in my last school, I asked, I think the school handled teacher recreation far better. The sports was, great. As a teacher, I played cricket, hockey, and football for the staff team. From the first year I was there in 85 till the last year I worked, which was the age of 66. I played in every school team, not only in the major games, but also in the minor games. And there were social evenings, there were staff movies, there were pool and lunches. I even led an expedition of staff motorbikers to Diu. We were heavily sponsored. We took 2 weeks. Great fun in our holidays. We chilled out. We spoke. We visited the cities. There were staff who did the summer and winter expeditions, either into the mountains or in the deserts. Some of them cycled to Leh. So the school organized art Sundays where music was played, and the teachers actually got involved with some degree of art. It was a 6 or 7 hour session. The students actually judged the art that we did. There was a little bit of refreshments over there. And these were things that kept us going, kept us alive. There was a kite flying competition that staff got involved in. As I said earlier, sport played a great part in my life and in many teachers' life. But today, with the stress of academics, with the coming of the international curriculum, I wonder how many schools have teams of teachers. 11 teachers can come out there and play 6 hours of cricket. As I said, teaching is a full-time job, and it needs to attract the best and the most noble brains. And the idea is to provide these teachers with a balanced life where they can take care of their families, and therefore the school authorities have to take care of the teachers, not only medically and physically and materially, but also in their wellness. They have to see that their minds are happy, that they don't get depressed. There's no point giving teachers heavy medical insurance. I think what we need is a happily balanced routine. And I think this is all that I have to say, Shubhayu. It's so important that teachers find something they like to do, and the school has to create the time and opportunity and even the finances sometimes so that teachers might, pursue what they love to do outside the class. Thank you very much for listening. And over to you, Shubhayu.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. It is so true that with every passing generation, work-life balance becomes a little more difficult. And I'm sure your experience and advice will go a long way in helping the younger educators on this forum. So thank you, sir. Thank you for that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. Achin is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubhayu, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a very insightful topic. As we would all agree, teaching is not just a job, it's a way of life. Especially during the difficult pandemic times, more than ever, as a society, we have become so aware of how teaching is a vocation and not just a job. Even in such challenging times, educators ensure that students didn't lose a precious academic year. There's sickness or sadness, exhaustion or emotional turmoil. Educators always put students' interests first. Now, as you all see, that teachers go beyond the call of duty to ensure that students do well. However, sometimes this diligence can tip the scales of work-life balance into an uneven position. The common saying, work to live, and do not live to work. A sentiment that I'm sure rings true for many professions, but not necessarily for teaching. I think we can take these words of wisdom and mix them up a bit. Work to teach and teach to live. Our research says it's okay to say no within reason. You can still seem keen and enthusiastic if you agree to some extra work, but make sure you complete those tasks well, rather than taking on too much and not being able to accomplish the level of quality that you wish to achieve. I think it's important to take steps to ensure that your health and well-being remains one of your top priorities. As over the years, it has a great impact on teaching. And also, if something is worth doing, it is worth doing well. Now, today, I think Birds have made some very important points. So today, if we just visualize an advertisement to attract new teachers, fresh blood into the profession, noble young men and women. So I visualize something in the lines of that you will cry with frustration and you will jump for joy when they do well. Or perhaps more simply, those who care teach. It goes on to show the kind of passion that this profession demands. And why as a society we have the utmost respect for our teachers. But the question is that practically, can teachers ever have a work-life balance? We all agree that teaching is stressful. But I think it's not unprofessional to have a life. At times, I feel teachers are a very misunderstood community. Very often, you see your friends who will tell you about the kind of great job that you have, finishing school at 3 p.m. or about those long holidays. But to cut to the chase, teaching is a stressful profession. And I think there's a lot of misconception with regard to the kind of workload. I think Birds is a great example. And many of those friends who jest about your extended holidays will not understand the complexities and strains of being in the profession. For instance, in corporate, a professional who is making a presentation to a client, how long do they spend preparing for it and ensuring that they really perfect their craft? Hours, at times even days. But as teachers, you present this every single day of the term with limited preparation time and with many of these presentations within one day, often consecutively. And if we added the difficulty of managing an audience who are often sprightly and sometimes uninterested, maybe the period after lunch or maybe the last period, and burdensome task, not just delivering your material, but also stimulating your audience. Thus, while many may argue that it is worth staying up late night for preparing for lessons, personally, I would argue against it. I think health matters and longevity in the profession is very important. So it's great to be enthusiastic. And yes, young teachers, they can stay up, I'm sure. And that happens at times, but on a regular basis. If you're staying up and preparing a great lesson up to maybe 2 a.m. or marking exam papers, is that sustainable in the long run? Is it of benefit to the youth of today? Having a horrific turnover of new teachers who burn out quickly in a Coach Carter sermon of saving the kids, because we have been discussing in this forum about, and it's a global challenge, huge turnover in this particular profession. And video lessons actually be effective on a regular basis, if you're so overburdened, so tired, there has been fascinating research produced lately showing that the most important thing that produces effective therapy in a counselor-patient relationship is not actually what the counselor does, but rather the strength of the relationship between two individuals in helping the patient deal with their problems. I feel this is the case in teaching too. Numerous studies have shown that above all other factors, it's the teacher in the classroom who inspires, cultivates, and enthuses learning. And how can an educator do that when he or she is surviving on few hours of sleep? I think a teacher matters. He or she is the most important part of the whole educational ecosystem. Teaching is therefore, the way I look at it, teaching therefore is not the profession for a perfectionist. There is always something more you can do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not undermining thorough, dedicated, inventive, and innovative planning. And personally, I'm not in favor of teachers who cut corners. But I also feel bad at times seeing talented people who come into the profession and being so overburdened, end up destroying their health and personal life. It's all about striking a balance. So, but how do we achieve this balance? I was reading about a fascinating book which has been published in last few years by Jim Smith and Ian Gilbert called The Lazy Teacher's Handbook. How your students learn more when we actually teach less. The book is not excusing hard work, far from it, actually. But it throws up fascinating ideas. Why should you be the one up all night working when there's a different way of doing it? By redistributing the workload, but by ensuring the students are more actively participating, actual learning outcomes can improve. And there are many global research which goes on to prove this. To put this into practice, I was going through a great example, in a particular research. Instead of producing a question sheet, the students were asked to make questions for themselves because they've gone through the lesson. Their responses, the answer sheets that they have written, in order to ensure that areas for development are found out, they were asked to help each other, to exchange their papers and check. They were given, of course, a sample answer sheet. And therefore, the educator is freed from talking for the entire semester and instead can advise, guide, and promote learning by intervening with people. Something that only a teacher can do. No one else can do this. Any learning aid, any teaching platform, anything in the world, no one can ever do that. The message I hope is that new entrant to the profession, I think it's really very important for them to ensure that it's not unprofessional to have a life. It's not cutting corners to go out for a dinner midweek with a friend instead of planning everything to the last day. It's not irresponsible to look after your own health. It's perfectly normal. Because as a teacher, you are the most important person in the room, the most important resource for the school. And of course, you cannot perform optimally if you're ill, stressed, or unhappy. You can buy a number of examples, being burnt out. And recently I was going through a study which was conducted more than a decade back in Warwickshire, England. And the study found out that 25% of head teachers who are head of departments, had an alcoholic problem. And when they were interviewed in detail, the shocking part of it was that many of them felt stressed out and burnt out. They couldn't manage they actually had too much on their plate. So I think it's important to reduce stress and have a more balanced life, planning evenings out. And today, if you open any newspaper or TV, very often we see this. Very often we see that heavy workload, stress level, tough times about teaching, but there's a lot of positive feel as well. Many educators, I've been very privileged to interact with so many educators, especially those who have come to teaching as a choice. They love their jobs. I think that's the best part of it. Teachers are often keen to make an impact. But I think the way I look at it, it's better to do your job well rather than take on too much and collapse under it. Also, a few other things like, it's important to prioritize and not procrastinate. Decide what needs to be done immediately rather than, too much at some point of time, the workload being really too much to manage. And also, I think as a profession, many young men and women are indeed perfectionists, idealists who come to this profession. But I think it's really important to accept the fact that yes, anything which is good can be better. While we of course strive for perfection, but at the same time, we should not be too hard on ourselves. Very important to communicate with our families, especially during pandemic, as we have seen. When teachers ensured, and I think contribution of teachers, as much as frontline workers like doctors or law enforcement professionals, in order to ensure the students didn't lose an year. But what did the teachers go through themselves? Many teachers, apart from responsibilities at home, also simultaneously managing classes after classes. At times it's very stressful, very difficult, especially doing it from home. The other part is, accessibility, because today if you look at things, especially when classes are being conducted over online platforms, Zoom, etc. At times, parents and students, they expect the teacher to be available 24/7, which is very unfair. I think grossly unfair. So it's really important to switch off at some point of time, maybe in the evening, so whatever time that suits you. Post that, of course, teachers, they have their own personal life. And it's completely fair not to be available. It's completely fair to rejuvenate and come back fresh the next day. So it's important to know when to say no. It's important to prioritize health. And the other part, I think, I listen to Bharat sir, especially in boarding schools or even otherwise, because of stretched working hours. Very often it's normal that most of our friends are our colleagues, people whom we work with. So naturally, any discussion, even during social gathering, revolves around our work. But I think it's equally important not to forget about your friends outside of school, those who are in different professions, in order to ensure that at times you really, get to discuss about things other than school. So these are a few points that I wanted to make. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. We have a great panel here today, and I really look forward to hear from them on this very important topic. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we do have a fantastic panel lined up for you today. But before I go on to the panel discussion, a little bit about us here at Notebook. At Notebook, we are an EdTech product. We provide short videos pertaining to the school curriculum. These videos come in handy in two cases. One, when you as an educator want to provide a visual introduction to a topic that you're about to teach. You can play these videos as part of your online or offline classes. And these can then lead your students to a more visual understanding of whatever you are going to explain next. Months later, the students can also have these videos playing on their personal devices at home. be it a laptop or a smartphone, they can watch these videos over and over again until they develop a crystal clear understanding of what they're learning. What I'm going to do now is play a short story of some of the notebook videos so that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
नमस्ते बच्चों, नोटबुक में आपका स्वागत है। इस नए वीडियो को आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करते हुए हमें बेहद खुशी हो रही है। हमारा उद्देश्य है परंपरागत शिक्षा को आधुनिक तरीके से पेश करना, ताकि हमारी ये नई पीढ़ी या आप सभी कहीं भी कभी भी इसे आसानी से पढ़ सकें।
Hello students, today we are going to study the story Madam Rides the Bus, written by Valli.
The king, Louis XVI, had come to power in 1774 at only 20 years of age. The king helped the 13 American colonies gain independence from Britain.
Curly brown hair turning permanently black. If you memorize this line, it will help you remember the ratios all your life. How? Let's see. Some people have is a way of remembering sine is equal to perpendicular by hypotenuse. Provides energy for everything you do throughout the day. Next is the nucleus, the brain of the cell. This is where all the secrets are stored. Why do you think you have black eyes as your parents? Aha! Thank the nucleus.
Whoa, what is this? We are gonna drown.
Don't worry, you're not going to drown. This is the cytoplasm.
Sometimes, a fully grown individual, such as Hydra or Planaria or starfish, can give rise to a complete individual from its body parts. Isn't this interesting?
नोटबुक में आप सभी का पुनः स्वागत है।
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a story of some of the notebook videos. If you head over to our website, www.notebook.school, or use our mobile apps for Android or iOS, you would find more than 10,000 such videos at your disposal. Well, with that done, it is now my privilege to introduce the wonderful panel that we have lined up for you today. We have with us Dr. Rashmi Tyagi, who is an eminent educationist from Mumbai, who has previously held prestigious positions like Director and Principal of Modern English School in Mumbai. She has contributed immensely to education in rural Maharashtra, having set up schools in Jinnah district, Pune, to help farmers' children. She also helped rural women with awareness program on health issues. Dr. Tyagi holds a doctorate in chemistry from IIT Roorkee and has contributed to the field of science education and research, presenting multiple papers as a science communicator. She was honored by the Kashmir University for her work on aquaponics. Besides being an evangelist of science and education, she has also promoted art, literature, and theatre as an art promoter, an author, and an actor. Ma'am, thank you so much for sparing the time to be here today. We are honored to have you. We also have with us Ms. Jyoti Nagrani, who is an educational administrator, taking up challenging assignments to turn around the mindset of a school by looking at it through the prism of a 21st century child. In her career spanning a little over 3 decades, she has worked with progressive schools in Lucknow, Bhopal, Dehradun, Jalandhar, and Jaipur. As a committed member of the teaching community, she has won accolades and awards for redesigning activity-based and experiential learning curriculums. She has held top administrative positions in capacities of leading academics and administration of CBSE schools. She identifies and understands what it takes to nurture and prepare children to take on the challenges of the 21st century. Aligning education with real life, Ms. Nagrani firmly believes that only adaptive and evolving teachers can connect, communicate, and collaborate with learning using technology as a tool and as a means to an end. For her excellent collaborative skills and efforts in the field of education, she was awarded the Rashtriya Shiksha Samman Puraskar by Global Achievers Foundation in 2016. During her last assignment, she took great pride in leading Delhi World Public Schools, Ragpur, as a founder principal. Ma'am, thank you so much for sparing the time to be here today. It's a privilege to have you on the platform. We also have with us Mrs. Harshna Lumba, who is the principal of the DANIMSS Sunbeam School, CBSE, a group of educational institutions of Varanasi, NTPC Tanda, Ambedkar Nagar in UP. She is an educational professional accomplished in organizing curricula, assisting with lessons, and collaborating with professionals to provide highest level of education. She herself holds a BA in English Literature, B.Ed, a MA in Fine Arts, and an MA in English Literature. She has had extensive hands-on experience in working with students of all ages, wide experience in fostering respect and discipline, as well as creating an enticing interest in learning by stimulating the multicultural, multiracial, and ESL students' environment. She promoted her school to remarkable enrollment growth and provided 100% results in both AISSC and AISSCE exams. She conducts dozens of training sessions for teachers' professional development and also facilitates parent communication through newsletters, social media posts, and curriculum blogs. Ma'am, thank you so much for sparing the time to be here today. It's a privilege to have you here. I shall now switch off the share, switch on my camera, and I would request all of you to please switch on your cameras. Once again, a very good evening, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, ma'am. Rashmi ma'am, if I may come to you first. Ma'am, you've had a long career as an educator, and through the ages, you've seen how work-life balance keeps shifting more towards work than towards life. The fulcrum has a shifting nature, is it? Ma'am, how do you ensure that you and your teachers in school ensure that they maintain a good work-life balance?
First of all, I am thankful to the Notebook team that you have invited me as a panelist today, and with such eminent, ladies, Jyoti and Harsha. I'm really delighted to meet them today. And of course, Barrett sir is always there. He always gives us, a great piece of advice. So, and for choosing Shubhayu, such a wonderful topic that speaks in volume about how the teachers, they are having that balancing act. And I will say that it is not for the teachers, it is for most of the professions that we have to do that kind of balance. And for that, I will take one example of Leela Seth. All of you might have heard her name. She was the first lady Chief Justice in Delhi, and she had handled the Nirbhaya case. And when first she wanted to work, then the employer, who was also, in the same profession, he asked her, go and get married. She said, I'm married. Then he said, okay, then have your children. She said, I have my children. Then he said, go and get your second child. She said, I'm having 2 children. So he said, okay, now you can join. So what I feel that this great lady, she was interviewed in such a way. And that was the other time, even before like me. I'm also quite senior by age, so I can say that. So that is one of the very, you can say important challenge for a woman to look after the children. More than household work, what I will say, looking after the children. And not only looking after the children, but also, having a balance with your husband's job. Because we are having transferable jobs. My husband, he was in ONGC. So mostly they were going, in the Bombay High, and we were transferred to different places in India. First, we were in Assam. So it is not only looking after the children, it is bearing the children also. So when we were in Assam, I had my first child, daughter. But, I was going to the school on the rickshaw. In the Assam, the roads in Sibsagar are not good. But every day I was going to ONGC Central School. And when Diwali vacations were there, that time I got the gift of my daughter. So it is the thing which is in your heart that you want to work. Because this is going to help you also. The teacher's job, it helps, while the studies of our children are going on. Now, I came to Mumbai, and then I was having my second child. and I was working in the engineering college, Vivekanand Engineering College, very well reputed college. And I want to say, I don't know how you people feel, but we feel proud, the ladies, because we bear the children. So till the last day of Diwali vacation, I was going to the college, and then I had my child. So nobody realizes that how much balance a teacher in her personal life she has to do, but you have to take it in a different way, that you should enjoy all these things. And after that, when the children grow up, that time also they need us a lot. But there also, I tried to have the balance. Like in my daughter's school in Mumbai, it was a convent school. I was, contributing to the school by taking their classes in Hindi, because I'm from Hindi speaking area. And then some honorary lectures and all that. And that has helped me. You will ask me how, then I will tell you. My daughter, she was in 10th standard that time. She was having her board exams. I was working in a different college. I got a phone call from the nuns that don't worry, Shivangi was having her practical exam in the morning, but she didn't turn up. Don't, make her nervous, and just tell her that she should reach in time. And that way they saved the day. And Shivangi got very good marks. So it is a balance that I was doing the job for the school and contributing to everything, and even to the mental health and also the physical health. Like we were having the swimming facilities and I was knowing swimming. So I said, okay, I'm going to take the children to, Khar Gymkhana for the swimming. So that was there. But of course, we have to, adjust in a different way. And I've heard Barrett sir, and as a man, he didn't talk about, whatever I have talked about as a woman, that looking after children and bearing children. But then he was telling that he was not able to look after the children so well, and lots of stress. So these things are also there. So it is just enjoying your work and having that kind of attitude of, fighting and, feeling good, enjoying, teaching. And I love teaching. And I say that during Corona period, all the teachers, we should salute them that they were working and they have brought the, students to their homes. And that way they were not having their privacy also. So that way we teachers are made up of something different. And this is how we are trying to have a balance. And now I think I've spoken enough, and then I would like to listen to others also, and then we can discuss it later. And I'm feeling so good being with Notebook today, because throughout the Corona period, you people have done a great job inviting us for such wonderful topics where we can, give suggestions to others, and we can incorporate these things in our lives. So now over to Shubhayu, and we'd like to hear these brilliant ladies.
Thank you.
How was their life?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Just to answer what you said last, we have done nothing except creating a platform. It is speakers like you who've made it what it is. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Shruti ma'am, if I may come to you next. Ma'am, we as a culture have somehow glorified, doing so much of hard work that life takes a back seat, which is perhaps not the best way. And now we are kind of waking up to that reality. Throughout your career, ma'am, how have you seen this shift? And also, what has been your advice to people who are finding it difficult to manage work and life?
Thank you so much, Team Notebook. Wonderful to be here. And the panelists, of course, audience, everyone. Good evening to everyone. So, well, for me, now that it's almost 3 decades and I've just taken off from Zirakpur, I was founder principal there 6 years. I had to come back because of an ailing old parent. And so, well, I'm here with my mother. But it's been such a fantastic, tremendous journey of 3 decades that bits of it are so clear in my mind. the interaction with teachers, the wellness clubs, the Netflix evenings, and there's so much to at the mental well-being of teachers. So there is one very favorite line which I use with all my staff in all the schools I worked in. I worked in 5 schools in 30 years, is that it is all in the mind. So once I say this, I also go forward to explain it. See, for me, it is a balance. Like when you look at the little triangular fulcrum underneath the seesaw, and you see work on one side and life on the other, and a tiny little shift from the center means you tilt it to one side. So that balance is about integrating work with the rest of your priorities in such a way that you give appropriate time and energy to both of them. If you're a professional, and then we are teachers, if we are teachers and passionate about our work and we have taken the plunge, then we have come into this profession wanting to project the best version of ourselves. When we project the best version of ourselves, we look for the best version in our students. So if we are going to allow the fulcrum to slip away this way or that way, the joy of being an educator is going to go. It's not going to be around at all. So maintaining that balance lies in your mind. If you're clear about your priorities, I remember the example of the Lazy Teacher's Handbook being given a little while ago. The whole book, I have read it, the whole book totally depends on the Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule, which if we can understand as principals, as teachers, as educators, it works wonders. It's a very amazing rule which talks about the input and the output, and what a funny role the input plays on the output and vice versa. So if we think smart and if we work smart, it's a little bit about smartness there, the 20% that we put in yields for us an 80% of result. It's also called the 80-20 rule actually. So that Lazy Teacher's Handbook is a very smart book, and I'm sure we should all find time to somehow get down to looking at it, reading it. A teacher who loses this, who fails actually to strike a balance, gets burned out. Now with the 19 months of the pandemic that we have faced and faced very bravely, I think it was 24th or 25th March last year when it was suddenly announced and all of us shut down schools and quickly found ways of dealing with the pre-boards of the class 10s, and it was a harrowing time. It was like being thrown into the sea, either you swim or you sink. But we swam, and now we've become ace swimmers. We learned from all the mistakes we made, but we were able to, but let me tell you over here that it could never have been done until and unless the team was strong. So to have a strong team, it is very important never to allow your teachers to get into any kind of a blame game. Teachers are overburdened. They are working 24/7. Even now it's like that. Parents are in a fix. The work at home culture has become something we all know about. All the terms of artificial intelligence, flipped classrooms, hybrid, blended. We hear these all so often, but they do take a toll on the teachers. So there is definitely a plan that you must have as a teacher to be able to function smoothly and not feel the burnout. The smart teacher will learn to switch off her phone after 7 o'clock. She will not take calls. She will be polite enough to send a message, I will call you tomorrow morning. But if she's not going to handle her job and her family, there is definitely going to be a problem created at the end of it. So if you're looking at the homework of 50 children, or now these days 30 children in a class, but you don't find time to look at your own child's homework, something is definitely wrong. So you have to try to find what is wrong, and you've got to learn to make that balance between your work and your job, between your work and your life. Now that's easier said than done. For this, heads of schools, counselors, psychologists in school, these days it's important to have counselors for children and for teachers in schools. All the schools I've worked in have always had them. It is very important that your teacher has access to these people, and ways and means of letting your hair down, watching movies, playing games, and doing your own thing is allowed. Also, to retain your teachers and not allow attrition, which has happened. Thousands of teachers have been burned out. They have either given up their jobs themselves, or the management has forced many teachers to leave because of cost cutting, you know, all the fee tamasha that's going on. So the whole thing has become a big, impossible circus. But yet, there are ways and means of finding entertainment in it. It is not as if you are just bogged down and there is a whip which is driving you on. No, that's where it's all in the mind. You've got to learn to work smart, not hard. Work smart. There is another thing which I always taught my staff was, I often heard teachers say कि इसको खत्म कर देते हैं, IYP नहीं करते, or United Nations मन नहीं करते, or you know, we tend to subtract from our list, whereas I believe that adding small things to your list may actually help you. Adding what? A small activity that you enjoy, a little bit of maybe the flute or the sitar or whichever other music you enjoy. Listen to that for 15 minutes. So little add-ons and not only subtractions give you that fresher incentive, that fresher feeling, that gearing up to go, you know, even a little Zumba with some great music helps. Stretch yourself. So small things, but they create a very effective and satisfied teacher. Also, winning the trust of your teacher to retain them. It's becoming more and more difficult with so much of competition to retain teachers. But winning them over, trusting them, recruiting them is something we must think about. I'll pause there for a minute.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for taking us through those wonderful advice that I'm sure will help a lot of people. And having come from a corporate background myself, I know all too well the value of stretching during work. First time somebody suggested that to me, I was like, you must be off your rockers to have me stretching out on the office carpet. But well, works. Thank you so much, ma'am. Harsha, ma'am, if I may come to you next. Ma'am, we'll focus on the pandemic period where people have had a lot of online classes, online learning. And while they did not have to travel to the school, I believe the stress level has gone up multifold. Things have become even more complicated at home. Ma'am, how would you advise your staff to maintain their work-life balance during such a period?
As far as my things are concerned, I am in a project school that is NTPC Tanda. So for me, things were a bit easier because not being in town, like it's a township. So all the teachers stays here in the township only. So, and yes, of course, my students belong to city also and to the township also. So for online classes, as far as online classes were concerned, we used to take from here only, and many times we were in school taking classes and for the short time, and divided timetable of each day given to each teacher, like it was floor wise, for block wise, 10 teachers of that block used to come on the particular day, that 10 teachers of another block used to come on the particular day. So can say for me the things were easier instead of other schools, like the way they were doing it. And for teachers also it was very easy, I can say, uh, because they were there in the township only and the school is very nearby. So for them also coming for 2 hours or 3 hours was very easy. And they could even maintain their time and energy and other work and cope up with the things very easily. So what I did is I gave priorities. I focused on priorities. What is prior? Like there are things which is important, there are things which is urgent. So we worked for urgent things first of all, and then later we focused on important things. Like for teachers, I can say for them, I told them to do it when they were not there in the school. So I told them to do the plannings of all the work and to adopt in the during the school hours, what to practice it in the school hours when they are there in the school. And during the home time they were just making the planners, they were just doing the things and getting it checked through calls, through Skype and through other things. And as we know, all were taking classes online. So when they used to come to school, so that time they were handling it the things. So and can say if study material and other things were required for them, for that those things they were in the school to take help from the library, from other teachers, from senior staff. Like suppose there was a maths department, the junior teacher is taking help from senior faculty, and that way we were able to manage. So that time also I made them totally free. I gave them a set time that you have to do this work by the time. So there was not a single time when the teachers were doing the work in haphazard manner and they were not doing it properly. So we could manage all the things properly. And as far as my teachers are concerned, I took their views as well. So being a principal, I kept on asking them. I was whether I was not very harsh or very tough on them. So they were okay with the things. Like they said, no, like we are okay and we can manage the things. So we manage the things this way in our school. And of course, as far as their personal life is concerned, so teachers, that time was really crucial, and they were doing, it was tough on everybody. So in that time, during that time also, we tried to help out everybody, each and every staff, not only teachers, to other staff also. So wherever, whatever things were required, we were one there. Like we were there in the evening for them if something was required. So we worked like a family. They had their personal family, but this was, of course, our first family. So we managed this way.
Wonderful, ma'am. That's wonderful to hear.
Thank you.
If I may ask you a personal question, I see a lot of paintings behind you on the wall, and you hold an MA in Fine Arts. Is art a stress buster for you?
Definitely, that's it, a stress buster. And during my free times, I used to do. I used to take up paintings. I used to do my, pursue my hobbies, and the same thing I told my teachers, all the employees, to do whatever you wish to do. Like whether they are there in the school, they were free to do all these things in school as well. Like ma'am just said, do Zumba, do anything. So we had very good time those days, can say. Like for half an hour we used to do it. Actually we did it in school, me and my teachers. We used to do Zumba in school. Then after the classes again we were doing yoga and other thing, and we enjoyed a lot. That is called making the best time of it. Like that time we made our best. We gave our best to the school, to the teachers, to everybody. Me, yes, of course, I also used to do my things, but not in school. I was doing at home.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ma'am. Jyoti ma'am, I'll come to you for the next question. You spoke about how the teacher should switch off the phone at 7 o'clock and not take a call from a parent. But here's the problem. Parents today are extremely demanding. They have your mobile numbers. So calls, messages, requests would come in. And not just to the head of the institute. And there is that pressure where teachers are being asked to be available 24/7. How do you deal with a parent when they ask for this? Because it's a stress point.
It happened in the beginning few months. It happened. Teachers, rather than just taking phone calls, teachers were working in 3 shifts because parents were also working from home. The laptop or the iPad was available only after a particular hour for, say, 10 children. So we had three shifts running in school during those days. Even now, little kids who don't come to school at all, the seniors have started coming. They are also still working online, and parents are asking 100 questions over the phone, or even butting in the middle of the class and asking the teacher that, ma'am, ye homework aapne diya tha, ye kal dena hai ki parso. So this happens. But even parents, see, our kind of schools have parents who, if handled with politeness, efficiency, and with the heart plays a big role here, I feel. It's going to make, it's a game changer. If the parent knows that you're really concerned, but you also run a family at home and you have a mother-in-law and a small baby, the parent understands. There'll be very few parents who will not understand the teacher's plight and keep on pressurizing the teacher. The people understand. I think almost 85% of our parents have been very understanding. So except for the first few months when phone calls were received even at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, we made a rule. We discussed. Admin teams were a part of the discussions, as were the management and the teaching teams. And we all shared ideas, and we said that the me time for the teacher is a big must. If she doesn't get her me time, then she's not going to be able to function in those 3 shifts the next day. Plus make her lesson plans, plus do activity. What were we not doing online? We still are with the little ones. Yoga, art, dance, music, each and everything we were doing online. And that takes time. Teaching little kids online has not been easy, but we've managed. So if the message from the head of school, and I was so busy meeting parents on Skype or on Zoom or anywhere, even on WhatsApp calls, video calls, I was talking to parents all the time myself. But that gradually tapered off. People understood. And it made a difference because we were so caring with everybody. They cared about us. So the 7 o'clock thing that happened maybe 4 months later actually wasn't all that tough. There were a few parents who neglected to adhere to those timings, but a polite message from the teacher would go and she would make it a point to call them first thing 8 o'clock in the morning. So the issue used to get sorted out that way. And on the whole, I think 2% parents were upset. The rest were quite okay with the way things were moving.
That's wonderful to hear, ma'am. Harshna ma'am, for you, most of your parents are also your neighbors, right? Because you're in a township, you meet them outside school, they are living next to you, they're meeting you at the club. How do you deal with this 24/7 interaction with them?
I must say during Corona time, like from last 2 years, I did not meet anybody because all the things are literally prohibited. Going outside, going to gym, going to club is literally. But yes, of course, in school, they were always welcome. Still they are but how we managed this situation, this 24/7, I started with one helpline number. We used to call it helpline number. We started with one particular mobile number where, and I gave circular to the parents, those who have any issues regarding anything, they may ask anything, anytime. Because we are very, being in township, I have all the parents in township as well. So to avoid all the things physically, so I told them, I give a circular to contact on this number, to send your message on this number, whatever problem they have, problem or any query or whatever. So on that number, they used to write a message, they used to post a message, and immediately that number was with my office staff, and that person used to call up the teacher. If that is a departmental query, the staff most immediately used to call up in the night even, that if the particular person is calling, so the teacher is supposed to pick up the call. Means that is helpline number, then you have to pick up the call. Generally, teachers also avoid picking up parents' call directly in the evening, in the night. They do not. But that particular call was supposed to be picked up, and then we used to post the message. Through message only, we used to reply the parent. So we managed the situation. So all the queries were resolved during that time through this helpline number only. And if they have to take appointment, anything, like suppose they have to meet me, so they used to post in the on the helpline number, and I used to give them the time for the next day or next to next day, that you can meet me at this time. So we managed the situation this way. I started with my helpline number, my own helpline, that is called Dalim's helpline number.
I think this is one of the things that is translated well from corporate to academia, helplines.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Rashima, if I may come to you next. Now, you've had experience across urban and rural schools. How difficult is it, or how stressful is it for the teachers to deal with the parents' expectations?
Okay, these people, my dear friends, they have talked about the stress level during Corona, and if you want me to talk about that, then I will say in the rural schools, the teachers, they are having more stress, because in the beginning, the teachers who could not even handle the WhatsApp, they started handling the online classes, and at times even, they were not getting this internet facility, then still they were trying their best to teach the children, and all other problems were there already, like not getting the fee, and they are not buying the books, and not having even one mobile at home. And if they are having that mobile, then the father is carrying it. So this is happening at many places, but I think somehow we managed the show. Like we have counseled the parents on these virtual meetings, that how they can handle the situation. And still, I'm telling you, when the schools have reopened, then parents are having lots of apprehensions, and they are telling the teachers that we are getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning, usual days during Corona, but you are asking that we should send our children at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then they said that my child is eating after every half an hour at home. I'm giving him the food. But if you are calling them to the school, so how my child is going to manage? So the Corona has brought about many problems, and 360 degrees turn in the teaching, learning, as well as in the personal lives. But still the people are coming to the terms, and as Madam said, that we are having the hybrid teaching learning. So that is the need of the hour, that we should have a balance between the traditional teaching learning and then the online teaching learning, and different type of learning, like she said, flipped classrooms. And we were taking our students for excursions, because in the rural area, when it was not there, the Corona, then we were taking them to the dairies. In that particular area, it is a very good green, having the mountains and valleys. So we were taking them for such kind of studies. And they were knowing about, how to look after the cow. And some of the children, they were even milking the cows. And they were collecting the urine. And then we were doing, distillation of the urine. And lots of, awareness on these things. And also in the school, as they were talking about, both our panelists, that during the Corona period, yoga is done and the brisk walking we can do, and lots of painting. Sitting at home only, we can have the virtual fancy dress shows and the painting competitions and lots of presentations about any topic for maybe the higher secondary, for the secondary, and for the primary. So we were doing all those things and we were giving them prizes also. So the life is not very much different from the, urban, but it is very good also, having some problems. But the rural areas in Maharashtra, the people are very well to do. The school, CBSE schools are very good. The buildings are, palatial, and they are having the agricultural land. So they are having the medicinal garden also. They are painting on the walls, the messages. So that way we are having fun, maybe a virtual fun sometimes in the physical way. So that is how it is done. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Harsha ma'am, I'll come back to you for my next question. All this managing students, managing parents is one part of it. But during these last 19 months or so, a bigger reality has been that now the family also has to be managed. Their expectations have to be managed. Unfortunately, we as a culture have never really looked at the genders equally. And given the overwhelming number of women in the teaching profession, it often has become a conflict point in a lot of households that this lady who's at home is in front of the laptop and not doing what she's supposed to do at home. Some of your teachers might have faced these situations, and if so, how would you ask them to handle it?
First of all, this question requires time management. This is a work-life balance is all about time management. So according to me, like I told my teachers to manage the time, since we know we all are CBSE principals, and CBSE even organize workshops on time management, on time to time, and others also. So every time I tell my teachers to manage your time with your work, so you would be able to handle the things very easily and very coolly. First of all, from my side, I provide them a cool environment. As I said earlier, I give them things before time. Like may it be a syllabus, may it be any ceremony, may it be any event, competition. So we give them deadlines 2 months before, 3 months before, like you have to manage this thing on that particular day. So this is what all about time management. And after how you are managing the things, you have, like for a particular event, you have a 1 month or 2 months. Now you have 2 months and these many periods, this is time. And evenings, of course, you are there with your family. So you have to manage all the things, school things in the school only, and family things there only. So if the time is given properly, and then moreover, if the teacher is focused, if what is the work is given. So if you are focused and you are managing the things well, then here comes act smartly. So as ma'am also said earlier, that there is a difference in being hardworking and being smart working. So like the people here, you need to act smartly. Need not to be a hard worker there. So hard worker can do the work, but they will not be acting like without time management. You cannot do it properly. So you have to take the views, you have to focus on the work, you have to manage the time, keeping the things all around, that in the certain time limit and certain resources, you have to show your best. You have to prove yourself to be the best. So I try to provide the things to the teachers. I try to give them all the facilities. I try to give them time, give them facilities. Now that is up to them. How do they perform? So here for me, acting smartly is required, and time required, time management required. So that's it.
In all of it, I love how planning plays such an important role. Beautiful. Rashmi ma'am, if I
yeah.
Rashmi ma'am, in your experience, because you spoke about how when you were expecting your children, you were still going to school and in rickshaws, but also people at home, how do you manage their expectations? Because they also add to that stress, right?
I think we had Durga Ma Puja, and when we talk, we worship Durga, then we know that Ashtbhuja, unke 8 haath hote hain. So that way, we people, even the, who is not working, a lady who is not working, she can manage a lot of things, and this is the time of multitasking. We are training our teachers all the time that as maybe the principals we are training that you should know how to do the multitasking, because lots of things are there. And I give the example of, Leonardo da Vinci. Who made the Mona Lisa. So he was, he has studied the sculpture and the painting, but then he had studied the anatomy also at the same time, so that he can draw very good portraits. And then he wanted to see the effect of light and shadow on that particular painting which he was doing. So he had studied the physics and he had studied the engineering. So he was versatile. So that way our leaders, our teachers, and the woman, she has to be versatile. And multitasking is the mantra for today for the leaders, because when you are a principal, you are handling the teaching, learning, you are handling the management, all the stakeholders, and then the people, the parents, and also the service providers. So Durga Ma ki tarah agar aapke paas wo ashtbhujaएं de rakhi hai to aap kar hi sakte hain. So this is what I can say.
Wonderful, ma'am. Here in Bengal, we take it a step further. So we have Dashabhuja, 10 hands.
Okay. Okay, there. How Dashabhuja?
There are 10 hands, ma'am.
Okay, 10 hands, more than 8. That is okay.
10 hands, 10 different weapons in the classical edition.
And we can manage, the ladies, women, and my dear friends, who are sitting here, they will say yes. The women, I will not say can manage them better than a man, but still I'll say that we have got more, responsibility, being a mother, being a housewife, being a wife, and then teacher, and the mother to all the children. We don't have only our own children, but we have got the children. And when you come to my age, then the parents are also like our children. We have to give them lots of, things we have to explain to them. Counseling we have to do. So Dashabhuja is required even more than that is required.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, Jyoti ma'am.
I want to add a little bit to what Harshna said about giving enough time to teachers so that time is managed well and the end product of whatever she's supposed to supervise or the event she's supposed to manage comes out well. What we did with our in-charges and older teachers, that we used to make small teams where a slightly more experienced teacher had 2 younger staff members with her. So that entire time management along with experience usually had a very good effect. It was learning for the younger staff, and the older ones were there for support, leaning, hand-holding, and that little wellness feeling, ki acha tumse nahi ho raha, come on, I'll do it for you. The leaning on each other, the dependency it's a little cocoon of warmth. Ki, acha, there are 4 people in my team. If I can't do it all, somebody else will pitch in. So that the strength of the team usually got about very nicely done programs, and the end results were always rather satisfying. So since that did so well, it's become like a culture that every event should have one older experienced teacher and maybe 2-3 younger ones with her. I wanted to add that to what Harshna said.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you all so much for contributing so immensely to it. I personally have a lot of learning and takeaways from here. If I may now quickly thank everybody for their contributions. Bharat sir, as always, wonderful to have you as an opening batsman. We always count on your 40 plus years of experience when it comes to introducing any of these topics. And you, sir, always give us a flying start. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Rashmi ma'am, we've had you here a few times, and every time we have benefited from your experience. And something that I've really admired about Rashmi ma'am is whenever we ask Rashmi ma'am to come and speak on a topic, there are so many personal experiences, extremely personal anecdotes that ma'am shares with us that it really livens up every session that we've had her on.
But so, I envy that these 2 wonderful ladies, they have spoken so well about their professional things today, and I have learned from them. So I think they're also a balance, you know, that professional, talking professionally. This is, I think personally they have talked professionally. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Life is learning. We learn all the time from our life, whether that is personal or professional. So every time from everybody we learn. So same here, ma'am. We have also learned a lot from you.
Yes, ma'am.
Harshada, I'm from BHU. You are from Varanasi? Okay. You are from Varanasi?
No, I do not. No, ma'am. I do not belong to Varanasi.
Yeah.
That is a group of institutions in Varanasi, but my school is in NTPC.
But I've done from Women's College, my graduation.
Okay.
So I love Varanasi that way, BHU. Thank you.
Okay. I belong to Kanpur, ma'am.
Wonderful. Jyoti ma'am, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Having your views, particularly the one about stretching and exercise and Zumba. I think everybody should make a mental note of it. I absolutely endorse that thought. And it's a huge stress buster to be able to just lose once a day. Thank you, ma'am.
Plus listening to your kind of music.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Harshna ma'am, thank you so much for being here. I think this is...
Thank you, Subhayu.
We had Mr. Saptarshi Roy from NTPC in episode 3, who was the director of study. And
director HR.
Yeah. And while I was talking to him while inviting here, he had very good things to say about the Tanda school. And today, all seeing how. I particularly love that urgency, importance matrix, helpline, the importance of planning. This is almost like the corporate handbook of how best to plan your time and manage your time. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Once again, thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bayu.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
To the audience, a big thank you for being here and being a part of this. We will see you again on Saturday with another topic. Until then, please take care and goodbye.